Welcome to Chef Boyardee. Today we are going to be making fresh Italian sausage, and we are going to be making kielbasa smokies with a friend of mine. Jordy's coming over. He's never made sausage before. He killed his first deer this year, so he's going to be coming over. We're going to be making two kinds of sausage. He has 20 pounds of white-tailed deer meat and 20 pounds of pork he got from a local butcher. We're going to be making, like I said, kielbasa. We're going to be making that into smokies, so I've measured it all out, and we've got the cure in there as well because we're going to be cooking that. And then we've got the Italian, which is going to be fresh. And I can share the kielbasa recipe with you because I got that online, but I cannot share the Italian recipe because that actually came from Italia. His dad gave me this recipe, so I have to make sure to be careful about that. I can share some of the ingredients in general because some of the Italian ingredients are in just about every Italian sausage. This is Jordy, who is just cutting up the pork that we're going to add into the deer pork sausage. We're doing 50-50 today, 50% deer, 50% pork. We went and got it from our local butcher. It's great fat to meat ratios, and he's just cutting it up into 1-inch thick strips so that we can put it through the meat grinder. It's easier if you do it in strips, 1-inch strips, as opposed to just cubed up, because then the meat grinder will actually pull it right through. If we were going to be putting in the spices with the cubes, then you would want to cube it up, but here this is going to make it much easier. It's partially frozen, which is how you want it, because you want everything as cold as possible when you're putting it through the meat grinder and mixer and stuff like that. We're actually going to store this stuff in the freezer in between stages, just so it stays as cold as possible. I've done it before where I didn't pay attention and didn't have it cold, and it doesn't hold the fat or the moisture, and it just crumbles apart. It's no good. So keep cutting, bud. Jordy got some great casings. These are natural hog casings. He got them from the same butcher. These are awesome casings. They come on this plastic strip, and you just get as much of the salt off as you can with warm water, and then you just peel it off this plastic sleeve and put it in this warm water. I'm sure there's a different way to use these plastic sleeves. I've never used these before, but they're great. So again, you just rinse off all the salt, and the idea here is just to get all the salt off of it. You do not want this salt. There's lots of salt in the deer and pork sausage already in bags usually, or a lot of times they'll come in bags. And the same thing, you just rinse off the salt and soak them for a while. Then you also have to run water through the inside of them to get the salt out of the inside of them as well, or your sausage will just be way too salty. So we have 20 pounds of pork and 20 pounds of deer meat, and it's all mixed together. And it's just about frozen, all of it. So it's just barely thawed, well, not even fully thawed. Now we're going to put it through the grinder. So we've got our grinder station set up. We're going to be putting this through the mixer as well. But Jordy is putting some deer and some pork, one deer piece, one pork piece, so that it mixes together in here as well. But again, it'll get all mixed properly in the mixer. So I thought I'd mention too, while we're grinding, we've got it in these strips. You can probably see the reason for that is this grinder, when you load it in a strip, it pulls it through on its own and you don't have to actually stuff it. That's why you don't see him using the plunger very much when you're using these long pieces. So when you have a chance, cut your meat into these long strips. It's so much easier when it goes through the grinder, and it's less cutting as well. Go for it. So we have ground all 40 pounds worth of meat now. We've got 20 pounds outside. It's 10 degrees Celsius outside right now, so it's super cold. We are ready to mix it. We're gonna put in all the spices, so we're gonna do that right now. Jordy, throw in the last of the meat and let's mix this stuff up. This is gonna be the kielbasa. So what we're gonna do, if you're gonna start spinning, I'm gonna put just pour this in as you're doing your thing. And you're just gonna work this until it gets, so I'm gonna put about half in and then put some of this ice cold water. And this is ice cold. Everything cold, 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 cold. In fact, this mixer, a lot of times they suggest putting this in the freezer as well. I don't have room in my freezer right now for it, but that would normally be what we do. So we're gonna keep mixing and mixing and mixing. I'm gonna put in the rest of this. Okay. So I pre-mixed all my spices last night to make this go a little faster. So we're not putting them in one at a time. Now I've got Roger's golden syrup that I'm going to put in there as well. Put the rest of the water in. Easier to turn. Now we've got the Roger's golden syrup. We are using cure, so nitrates in this, because this is going to be a smoky. He's going to cook this all tomorrow. He's going to leave it in the fridge overnight for 12 to 24 hours. And then him or his wonderful mom is going to cook this for him in the oven tomorrow. Yeah. I prefer the smoky or the smoker, but the oven just works just fine. No problem. About half of my stuff has been, yes, perfect. Let me do that while you mix. Perfect. And you can go both ways with this thing too. Yeah, perfect. We're almost there. Just a little bit more.
Oh, it's gotten way tougher since I did it last time.
Right?
Way tougher.
That's perfect. I think we're just about there. Yeah. I think that's good. Perfect. Okay. Just like that. Now we're going to start the stuffing process. All right, so we've got our pan hot. Now we have to do a tester, and you always have to do a tester, because if it's not spiced right, or if it's not flavorful enough, once you've stuffed it, you're done. But you can always add some more salt to taste here. Ground white pepper is really good, something to add to taste. If you're using a spice pack and you've only used 75% of it, here's now where you'd add in your extra. We are using curing salt, so this isn't generally how you're going to cook meat that has curing salt in it, but we're only going to be eating a little bit of it, so you can certainly do that. Also, really, we're going to just cook it really quickly, so a tight little patty is all you need. I tasted it after Jordy tasted it. I think it's fine. In fact, it's pretty salty. I love it. Jordy also wants to add some more heat to the other stuff, so we might do that as well. This is very exciting. So now I'm going to take out the mixer arm of here. So you just pull off. We've got my stuffer. This is a 10-pound stuffer, so I can put 10 pounds in at a time. What you want to do when you're loading your stuffer is to put it into a ball. You load it into a ball and then throw it down, because it kind of creates this vacuum seal if you don't load it like this, and it can be hard to actually put a full 10 pounds in there. Oops. There we are. You can see right down in there. Oh, wow, it is really sticky. This is great. Means that binding agent is working great. This is the first time I've ever actually used skim milk powder as a binding agent, and so far super happy. What it does, that binding agent holds in all the moisture and the fat. So that should be just about good right there. Okay, and now we can put it up. And mine needs to be fixed a little bit at the edges, so I gotta kind of jam it in there. There we are. And then just slowly put it down. Now we're going to clean out the insides of these casings. They've been soaking for at least half an hour, so they're nice and pliable now. But we still need, and I've changed the water a couple of times, because it's important that, again, we get all the salt off this. So I need to change the water a few times. And I find the end, and you just have the water on, nice and warm. And you basically just put it over the tap. Like so. And then just run it through. And I'm going to do this twice for each casing. Get rid of all that salt. And that's it. We'll be back to stuff in just a minute. Pounds in there. Now we need to take one of our casings and put it on. So I'm going to take some olive oil and get this oiled up. And as long as these have been soaking long enough, this isn't something you have to do, but I like to do it. It tends to help the first little bit go on. But again, make sure that these have been soaking for a while, because it's really tough to get them on if they haven't been soaking for a while. Yeah, these are great. Yeah, see, like that's a hole, so we're going to cut that right there. And they try to give you consistency in the casings and stuff like that when they sell them. I mean, this is the same that he's using, the same kind of casing, so it's not like he would use a crappy casing, but you can only do so much. And then, this is very, very important. You've got a push pin, because you have to be able to get the air out of here. You're going to see that's full of air, so when you start cranking it down, so why don't you start cranking it down and go real slow. So you see this is filling up with air. You just got to poke that, put little holes in. There you go. And you're going to start cranking. And you're putting pressure, I'm putting pressure with my left hand, a little bit on it. And just keep going.
Just keep her going?
Yeah. And it's hard, it's really hard to do what you're doing right now, because this is so, it's quite thick and pasty. Oh, stop. So that's what I was saying about sometimes these aren't great. So we'll see what happens here. That's one coil, and then we're gonna put that in there. Okay, go for it. It might be easier to put your hand on the other hand on top. Yeah.
Yeah. Look at that.
Yeah, that's beautiful, man. Okay, stop. And this is not a big deal, especially because we got so much casing. So we'll just seal it. Okay, stop. This is 20 pounds of kielbasa right here. It is all nicely put into some sausage casings. Now we have to do two things. We have to poke it to get all the air bubbles. I don't know if I explained that when we were actually doing the stuffing of themselves, but you want to make sure to keep out as much air as possible, but you're always going to get little air bubbles. So what you have to do is you take some push pins, and you can make one that's got 3 or 4 on here, and you got to poke the whole coil, every single piece, and we're going to poke it all around, and just a zillion little holes. Now these little holes, they let out air, but they don't actually affect the integrity of the casing at all, so you're totally fine. This isn't going to let out moisture or fat or anything like that. These holes reknit, they just let out the air. So it's just a zillion little holes, and if you see any air bubbles, just get them specifically. So now that we've got the air out, and we're going to do this with every single one of them. Now you want to link these. So how we're going to link these is you take, now there's all kinds of videos on how to link these or what sizes to make them. I don't really care what size they are, so I just take a little bit about what I want for a sausage. I pinch it and go one direction. Then I go about that same distance, pinch it, and you want to kind of massage it, because if you pinch too hard it'll break. So pinch it and then go the other direction. The reason you're going the other direction is so you're not unwinding the last one that you made. And you just keep going. So go a little ways, and then go, and there we are. And just keep going. A little further, massage it. And you want to be careful when I talk about massaging it like that. You want to be careful, because if you do break it now, you don't have any more. We're not going to do another batch of this kielbasa. So this one is really tight, so I'm going to be real careful when I'm doing that. And then pinch there. And that's why I actually left this one a little longer, because it was so tight here. I didn't want to try to do it halfway through. And there we are. So there you have linked sausages. 20 pounds worth of kielbasa, and that's going to be turned into smokies. So leave that 12 to 24 hours so it'll cure overnight in the fridge. And then they are going to either smoke that or cook that in the oven. This is the raw Italian sausage right here. This stuff we're going to wrap right now tonight. You could let it sit out on the counter for a little while. That's probably the best idea, but Jordy's got to get going home. So what we're going to do is we're going to wrap it right here tonight. Now I've cut them already, each into individual sausages, and we're going to do the triple wrap. And this is a way somebody else showed me so that you can keep this in your freezer for up to like 3 years. They say don't keep anything in your freezer for more than a year, but I've taken sausages out of the freezer after 3 years and they taste great. Take your saran wrap and you get 3 sausages of about the same size. Over here. Take them and you wrap them as tight as you can. And I usually wrap it about 3 times, maybe 4. Fold over the ends. Do the best job you can at folding over those ends. And then I wrap it a second time in saran wrap so that it gets the ends. And I do that another 2 or 3 more times. And that ensures that there's nothing coming in the end. Make sure to wrap that super tight. So this is the first of the 3 of the triple wrap. Second one, you take some wax paper. Now when you're using wax paper, there's going to be the paper side and then the waxy side, so make sure that the waxy side is in. And there's all kinds of ways of doing this. I wouldn't suggest necessarily doing it the same way that I do it, because I just do it real fast and don't really know what I'm doing. But basically, I put it on the corner of one, and I wrap it once over, kind of underneath, and then I pull the wax paper in on this side. And you want to make it as tight as possible. Again, we're trying to squeeze out all the air while we're doing this. We don't want any air in there. And then wrap it once over, again, and then one more time. Now, you can definitely buy freezer paper, but I find that this stuff, the packing tape, works great and it's fast. So I just put it on there. Now, always on these, I write on them, because 3 years from now, if you do keep this a long time, you may know what you put in here right now, but you're not going to remember what you did in 3 years. So fresh, I always put whether it's fresh or smoky. So fresh, meaning uncooked. Hot, Italian. And I always put the year. Sometimes I put the month as well. So we're going to put down December 18. That means December of 2018. So that's the double wrap method. And then the triple wrap method is put them in Ziploc bags. Now, I use big Ziploc bags, and we'll put maybe 6 or 7 packages, and I squeeze out all the air. And that's exactly what I'm doing with this as well. I'm going to squeeze out as much air as I possibly can. And again, you're going to be able to keep this fresh, hot Italian sausage for a couple of years. That'll taste great. Thanks so much. Come back soon.